Hi, I'm Andy Acton.
And I'm Chris Strevens.
This is Dentology, the Business of Dentistry podcast. What a thoroughly enjoyable conversation that was.
It's lovely, isn't it? I mean, he probably won't want to be called an elder statesman, but he is an elder statesman.
He would laugh.
For people to look up to.
He would laugh.
Did you know people to look up to?
He's wise. He's a wise guy. And I think just he's very considered and thoughtful and not dramatic about the situation, but
super calm.
So much wisdom to share. And I think for younger people coming to the profession, they're going to find it remarkable to get insights from somebody with his depth of experience. But and also people that have been around for a few years, they'll nod and go, yep, that's what it's like.
I think the great thing is, isn't it, he's so well known, but probably a lot of people don't hear some of the stuff, you know, that story of how he got to where he got to, really. It's just like, oh, okay. Yeah. Because he is so well established, people don't sometimes look at the past.
But also just getting these insights on people, tech, well-being, the business of dentistry. Cracking episode.
That was really good.
Episode.
Really enjoyable. Very enjoyable.
Here we are again, another episode coming our way.
Can't wait. This will be an exciting one.
One of the legends of dentistry.
Is that legend?
Not a legend.
No, a legend.
I'm sure I've heard legend from this end.
So, ladies and gentlemen, today we have Dr. Paul Abrahams joining us. Paul is a dentist, a very well-known dentist.
Very well-known dentist.
Principal of SmileMore Dental Care for 30 years.
He doesn't look old
and
enough,
officially the coolest guy
Oh, no,
in
he
dentistry.
does look old enough.
Welcome, Paul. How you doing?
I'm all right, thank you. Thanks, Andy and Chris, for having me.
Pleasure.
I'm not sure about 30 years. A bloody long time, isn't it? Really, to be
It is
looking in people's gobs, really, and that sort of thing.
But
I'm
all
not sure
that
about
wisdom.
the coolest person in dentistry. That's very kind.
Oh no, you are. You are.
Very,
Whenever I
very
see you, I
kind.
think when I grew up, I want to be like Paul Abrahams. That's every time I see you, I'm like, that's who I want to be.
That's very kind.
Before we get into the dental bit, can we just wind back to the beginning, your childhood? Yeah, what was it like? Where did you grow up? Parents,
so I grew
siblings?
I grew up in North London. My parents lived in Wembley Park, actually, a stone's throw from Wembley Stadium, just on the hill up there. Lots of memories of wandering down for big cup finals and all sorts of things and milling around with the crowds. Great place to be. Great community.
The original Wembley Stadium is still something to behold. I know the new arch looks good, but it wasn't the Twin Towers, was it?
It's not the same. It's not the same. And the area has changed hugely, lots of London being built up hugely. I've got one brother, an older brother, and, just a straightforward childhood, I suppose. Nothing dramatic in there to tell you about, really. But, I'm very fortunate. Both my parents are in their late 80s and still alive.
Brilliant.
I've moved somewhere else in North London. So, yeah.
Were they dentists or any dentists in the family?
No background at all in healthcare. I think like many third generation people of Jewish background, and maybe like many of my Asian colleagues, parents were driven to get you to university. My son's gone to university, and preferably medical, dental, or law, or accountancy, one of the professions. It's just the way it was. And I ended up at dental school, just the way it was. So,
And you were the first generation of your family to go to university.
Correct.
So kind of linking on what you were just saying about your parents' ambitions for you. Was that quite a big moment in your family?
Well, my brother is older, so he went to university. So obviously he was the first. But I think it was in terms of going into one of the notable professions, I suppose. That was a big moment. I've got... my mum actually is from a really big family. So my mum is one of 9 children.
9?
Wow.
Really big family from Liverpool. So my dad's an Eastender and my mum is from up north. So I've got lots of cousins, big family, and one of my mum's sisters actually lived in the same street as us. So I've got 2 cousins there that were like brother and sister. And my cousin who's a year older than me went to medical school. So there was a big... It was a big thing. It was a big deal for them. That's their ambitions for their kids. That's what they want. It might have changed a little bit now, but for sure, it was a big deal.
How did East London and Liverpool meet, Paul?
East London and Liverpool. So really, it's the Jewish community thing. I think my dad, one of my mum's older brothers introduced my dad. They used to come down and work in London. Lots of, actually, even my generation, there was a very big club scene, so not as in nightclub scene, but youth club scene. So the Jewish youth clubs through the 50s, 60s, and even into my era in the 70s and 80s were huge. most of my friends today are people that I met at my youth club when I was a kid.
Wow.
It was a part of a community thing.
Yeah.
Big factor. And that's how they met. So through that sort of organisation. So yeah.
It's interesting when you hear things like that they've kind of been lost through time, haven't they?
Totally, 100%. I'm a lot religious. My wife is Catholic, actually. I'm Jewish, so my kids do whatever they want to do. But the one thing I think that comes from that, and still does, is the community. There's I think that's been driven into me, and part of that through my professional career as well. That community is so important. That support from other people around you, maybe of similar background. There's good and bad to it, but one thing that's good in religion is absolutely that community thing.
Yeah,
definitely.
So you graduated back in 1989.
Yeah. Say that slowly.
Some 35 years ago from Guy's.
Yeah.
Just last week I met a guy who's he's a dental student in Liverpool at the moment, and he was kind of recounting what his experience is like and how he's finding it. Roll us back to the mid-late 1980s. What was dental school like then, and what was your experience?
Well, you might agree, Andy and Chris, you're not too far off you're obviously much younger men, aren't you?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Well said.
I was thinking I'm older than. I think I'm older than Paul.
Yeah. So I would say that the 80s was a golden period. I think we were very fortunate to be brought up in the 80s, be in our 20s in the 80s. Britpop,
yeah, great
sport,
music.
Gaza,
Yeah.
Italia 90, all those things. It was an amazing era. Live Age, all that sort of stuff. That happens. It's a big part of in 1984, that for me, I lived over the road from Wembley Stadium, so went to that. It was incredible. It was an amazing era. We're very, very lucky. And at the time, now University of London, Guy's is one of, I think they've merged everything. So there's essentially 2 medical and dental schools. At that period, Guy's was one of 7 or 8 medical dental schools in London, if not more. So there was a big competitive spirit. I played a lot of football. We had Inter-Hospitals Cup. It was a great, fantastic era.
And guys from Guys always wore a blazer. I seem to remember that.
Say that again?
The guys from Guys always wore a blazer.
No. We always
they always look very smart.
So I think we're one of the few professions that I had to wear a shirt and tie and a white coat. And then you can chuck it all away when you qualify and wear a t-shirt and put scrubs on at the other end. So, it's, although we did, actually when I started, it was shirt and tie for sure. So there was a formality about it, but it was an amazing, great institution, great memories.
And what was your period from qualification? You owned SmileMore for 30 years.
My best mate was going out with a hygienist in his final year, and that hygienist said, who I got very friendly with, said, my boss is looking for someone, a guy called Morris Weinstein. In Southfields, which is a bit of a fit for Paul Abrahams, to be honest. That was so. I think I just qualified. We qualified in those days. We qualified in December,
right?
Not in the summer. So it was like a 4.5 year course. Finals, and then we qualified. So I qualified December '89. Went down to I call him Maish. He's 9 years older than me. Went down to his practice. We had a sandwich, talked football. Showed me the room, which was empty, had nothing in there. He said, when do you want to start? I said, he said, I need to get the room ready. I said, I'll come in and paint it for you, don't worry. If we're going to start in. I can't imagine anyone doing that today. We always joke about it. But I said, listen, I've got a few weeks, so I'll come in and, it needs a coat of paint. So I painted my own room.
Excellent.
And I started in January 90 in Southfields, just down near Wimbledon.
Wow.
So that was January 90.
January 1990.
But then by 93, you set up a squat, which is a bold move in itself.
So it was, but Andy, the most important thing about that job is that, and I'm to this very day, he didn't only become, it wasn't my boss, he became my mentor, my guide. He was an amazing bloke to work for, very influential on my career. And we set up SmileMore together actually in 1990. So he said, come on, let's look for another practice. St John Woods is a great area. We came to look at this place in February, probably 92. It was freezing cold. My practice is on 2 floors, it's tiny. And there was a guy who was working 1 day a week. And he would come over from Jersey. The second floor, he would camp overnight, see his patients on a Tuesday, and then go back to Jersey. No surprise, he was going through a divorce at the time. So essentially, it was a squat. We bought the lease, set it up together, and then worked together for probably 4 or 5 years. And I bought him out eventually, with his blessing, with his guidance, with his help, with him saying. So at that point, I was working. We built it from nothing. I was probably doing 2/3 days a week in Southfields. Maish was doing another day, and the tipping point, and I was still working, like I say, I had a big income from Southfields, and he just said to me, listen, buy me out, but you can work for me as long as you want. No problem, stay working with me, I'll support you. As it happens, I stayed in Southfields for about 2 months, because once you're in your own practice, different story, right? And presence. So I'm not sure. Very different times, I think. And I'm still to this day, I pop round to his place on a Friday night. He's got a fantastic whiskey bar, and we sit chewing a fat over
and it's
whiskey.
lovely to hear a story where he kind of takes you under his wing, shows you the ropes, becomes a mentor.
So the mentor role is
you're then in
so
partnership.
key.
It finishes nicely, because you hear so many horror stories of things not working out, and when you hear that as a really positive experience, it shows people that it can work. It's not all going badly.
And I think fundamentally, look, sometimes by luck. It is by luck. Getting that job was by luck, but I think the people that can influence you early in your career are fundamental to how your career progresses. And some of that is choice. I always say with a BACD, one of the most, and I think a lot of the younger guys would say this, get involved with BACD when they're students, and they come into contact with these people that can help them and are open to help them. And I think you've got to seek that out. If you realise you're in a place where someone is really not supporting you or not helping you, you need to look around and change. Because that's what you need in your career. Dentistry is a hard place. It can be a lonely place. So that support, mentorship is critical.
Yeah.
You need others to help you, don't you, for sure? Because as you say, Paul, it is very lonely. We always say to people, you're a dentist, but then you got all these other things, but ultimately it's you, really.
Yeah. It can be.
Yeah, no, it's not.
And we come full circle, so now I'll sit at his place on a Friday and hear us, I've done a whole lot of other stuff. And they're asking, what do you think I should do with this? Or, it's fun, so we have that two-way relationship.
Lovely. Given all your experience, I'd like to get your take on, I've got a few topics I'd like to get your take on.
Frightening.
We'll run through them one by one.
Yeah.
People, how have the people in dentistry changed over the decades?
Decades.
I don't know that we've changed. I think people are people, and dentistry is a reflection of society. You've got a whole cross-section of people within dentistry. Possibly one of the things that we've seen emerge in the last few years is entrepreneurs in dentistry. I don't think that really was the case. Few and far between if you go back 20 years ago, whereas today a lot of the young guys come through and they have this entrepreneurial drive, which, multiple practice ownership, all sorts of stuff going on in the background. It's crazy. I don't know how they do it. I really admire them, and we're seeing some tremendous young guys coming through, making huge contributions to our industry, which is so great to see. So I think that has changed, but people are people. It's all, we attract all sorts, right?
And I'd agree. There is a very much more of a business flavour to dentistry than there was before.
100%, which is good, not bad. It's good.
Oh no, it's a good thing. Good thing. You're an embracer of technology. I guess when you started out, there wasn't much digital tech in a dental practice, so that must have been transformational.
So it was, and the first thing, and again, I talk about my mentor, but he was always pushing the boundaries. So he had computers in the practice before most people had them, doing the day-to-day stuff. I think the first thing that we got was an intraoral camera. This thing you stuck in someone's mouth and you could show them their tooth. I mean, that was a game changer, and then obviously it evolves from that. So I couldn't practice without my digital technology. I've got this little room, and I'm surrounded by three. Well, actually, I've just sold one, so 2 scanners. But and this again comes a little bit from Maish, but my fundamental ethos is the only constant is change. Things are going to change, whether you like it or not. And if you're not going to change, then some guy's going to set up the corner and be doing things better than you are doing. So I think that's a really key thing, particularly today in dentistry, particularly in the last decade. Things have changed beyond any recognition in how we work.
We've kind of touched on it just sort of around the edges with loneliness. Well-being is obviously a huge topic at the moment. Has the stress of dentistry, has it always been there? Has it always been the case? Or do you think the stress is increasing as the years go by?
I think the stress has always been there. I don't think we hear about it more, social media, all that type of stuff. Look, there was a period where when we bought this practice, we had to refurbish. So we had a builder. Guy said 6 weeks, be done. He started the work in, I think, September of whenever it was, 93, whenever it was. We worked for a few months and then ripped off. We've got a little flat roof and a flat roof at the back. There's a shop underneath. Ripped the roof off, disappeared. We had the worst rainfall we've ever had in October. This is stress. The woman from downstairs came upstairs and said, I'm knee deep in water in my shop. What are you going to do about it? So all those stresses, we've all been through those stresses. And then, working, trying to earn it. We got through it. It took 6 months, not 6 weeks, but we got through it. And then just building a business, it took us a few years to take any money out. I mean, honestly, I was working in 4 different practices at one point. I've got 4 kids. I had at that time that was my first child, was born in 93. We had children pretty quickly. So I think all those things have always been there, and we all deal with it in different ways, right? So
it's probably more vocal now, isn't it? I think that's
it is more
people
vocal.
Now talk about it more.
Yeah, which is good.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, you need, we all deal with stress in different ways. If you've got the support of people around you, family support, all that type of stuff.
I think in some ways it might be mildly comforting that it's not getting worse, because I think there might be the perception that it's becoming more stressful and things are getting harder. But I think
I think
it's just been talked about a bit more.
We have to acknowledge that things like litigation have increased. That wasn't. I don't think that was really on my radar 25 years ago. So yes, and that is stressful for people. I acknowledge that is definitely one thing that's changed, and people feel threatened by that. And then obviously not supported by the health service. I'm very fortunate to have worked in private practice for most of my career, and I consider myself to be very lucky. Those stresses are immeasurable.
I suppose they're different stresses, aren't they?
They are.
That whole sort of thing, it's running a business, no matter what it is, has never really been easy.
No.
There's always issues that I think the thing is that people are more vocal about it, or prepared to say, oh, I'm stressed. Maybe they might not be stressed. It's an interesting one, isn't it? I think sometimes the pendulum can swing the other way.
And on the business of dentistry, Paul, would you say that that's now like a non-negotiable? You need to have decent business skills to own and run a dental practice, perhaps compared to days gone by?
I think this, again, is these two things of, we have the obvious entrepreneurial approach to dentistry. I mean, without those business skills, you're going to be lost. And then there's what most people are in, is everyday dental practice, running their own business. They can be learned, but there's not enough of that at an undergraduate level, just the fundamentals. But I think my kids would say there's not enough of that in life. None of my children are in dentistry yet. They would all say that they felt that they weren't taught enough about business before they graduated. So yeah, absolutely. But there's all the resources there now. That's the point, particularly within dentistry. To go out and learn those things.
To learn it.
In the old days, we relied on the guy that we worked for to point us in the right direction. I'm still learning that stuff. Honestly,
Frank Taylor.
Never stops.
So 5 years ago, you sold out to Dentex, which is now part of Portman Dentex. How did that process go for you?
For me, it went really smoothly. I still maintain that. I know some people would say it's not such a smooth process. I wasn't thinking about selling my business. I was I'll be 59 in January, so I was like 53. It wasn't something that was on my mind. Someone, apart from Dentex Portman, approached me and wanted to buy me. And at that point, as you might or might not know, Andy, Chris, that I'm very friendly with Rahul Doshi. I think I must have been talking to Rahul about it. He said, listen, I've got involved with this business called Dentex. It's fundamentally different to anything that's been there before. It's early days. maybe you should consider joining us. And that's where it went. We had discussions, and it just seemed like there was always a risk in it. Their fundamental difference was, as a partner within Dentex, you've still got a share in the business. So there was this element of taking shares in the bigger business if you wanted to, as part of your retention. But I felt like I wasn't totally relinquishing control that way. But it was a little bit of a jump, because at that point, I think there was only 20 practices in the group. We didn't know where it was going to go. My lawyer said to me, "You've got retention of 20%. You may as well forget about it, because you might never see it." So that's a jump or a leap you've got to take if you're prepared to do that. And it's worked for me. It's been great. Support, particularly through COVID. That's unbelievable, really.
Yeah. And your work style now is 3 clinical days. You do some clinical and engagement lead work at Portman, and you also lecture. Is that kind of the mixture that you've got? And that works for you?
Yeah, I love it. I'm really enjoying it.
You've said before that when you did the lecturing, when you started lecturing, you didn't particularly enjoy it. You didn't like it.
I don't know if I can use this. I used to shit myself, honestly, and Chris. I couldn't. I found it really difficult to stand up in front of people, and I just couldn't do it. Found it really hard. But what the BACD gives you is that pathway. So they would say, come and just talk in front of. I remember going with Zaki Kanan the first time I ever did it. Zaki, who's younger than me, but been involved for a while.
Yeah.
Absolute natural when it comes to lecturing. We went and did, I think, a study club in Liverpool, it was definitely Liverpool, because I remember Daz being there, Daz Singh. So that was probably the first time I stood in front of 10 people. And then you progress, you start doing a little bit more of it. Yeah. I got involved with the line, doing some stuff with them, and they actually did some formal training, which was really useful. I've done a couple of other bits I did something with Ashley Latta on presentation skills. Right. That was really worthwhile. And then suddenly you're standing up in front of 100 people or 150 people and enjoying it. And I do enjoy it now. It's completely different. I can't believe that shift has happened. But there's a tipping point. I think for me, again, I did quite a lot and then became BACD president. Yeah. And then what I realized was I had to give that presentation at the beginning of conference, which was for me a really big deal, in front of my peers, in front of all the ex-presidents, whatever. And I really prepared it. And I had a little bit of help along the way from some of the guys on the board. Big shout out to Sam Jethwa there, who really helped me with the presentation. But I realized that I prepared properly for what was a really important thing for me to do. And because of that, I could have shut my lab shop, closed my eyes, and I could have just reeled off. And it was a very comfortable place to be. So I think it's just, you've got to prepare for these things.
Power of preparation.
It must be harder, mustn't it, really? We do lots of speaking, but we don't speak to anybody who probably knows more than we do, not being big-headed about. We talk about business and practice sales and markets, and most of the people we're talking to
it's your specialist subject.
Yeah. Whereas it must be very different if you're talking to a bunch of dentists who are your peers who have similar skills or maybe even better. Yeah. It must be quite, actually, I hadn't really thought about that, but it must be a touch more nerve-wracking.
It is nerve-wracking, but as you progress, you're getting older. So you have been doing it for a long time. And actually, then you're in the room with people who are mostly younger than you, and you should know more than them. So that's the fear, actually. You stand in front, if you're teaching something, it's like, do they know more than me, sort of thing. I love doing the small stuff. I love doing hands-on teaching with a group of 20. Right. I love that type of stuff. I really enjoy that particularly because you really feel you can give something. But the other stuff, you realise that I am the oldest person in the room, so that's all right. They're looking at me, thinking he probably does know what he's doing.
I think we both love it. It's like you. I think we've grown to love it, and it's just really enjoyable to impart knowledge to other people.
So,
those days are great.
You're ex-president of the BACD, one of the founding members of the BAPD. So it gives you great insights in terms of dentists thinking the direction. What's your view on the current availability of dentists to meet patient demand? There's a shift towards many dentists now, and you work in 2, perhaps 3 clinical days a week. Where are we heading in terms of that direction?
I don't know. We clearly haven't got enough people, have we? I mean, that's clearly the health service is a mess. We consistently hear government talk about increased funding, blah, 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 blah. And the whole thing needs ripping up and starting again. It's fundamentally flawed, the system. So I think we're heading into trouble. When people can't get, there was a piece on the news this morning about cancer care and access to, I don't know if you saw it.
I did,
people not getting to cancer care quick enough. That's killing people. But at the same time, we all know the link between dental health and systemic health. And we've got whole swathes of the population that can't get basic dental health care. It's not right, is it? And I'm not sure what the answer is. Bringing in people from abroad is not the answer who aren't trained properly.
Well, I was just going to say that's one of the solutions that's been suggested is fast-tracking overseas dentists into the UK system.
I don't see that as a help. I think that's going to create more problems. We probably need to train more people, but that's not going to happen overnight. Can we force? No, I did optional VT, so I did a year of VT when I started. Should there be big hubs where newly graduated students go in and support the health service? There's lots of ways probably it could be done.
Yeah.
But unless there's will from government, it's not going to happen.
Over the years, you've probably seen this through your own career and probably within your practice. Are hygienists and therapists being used to the extent they could or should?
Underused, myself included. I mean, I've got hygienists. Again, the guy I worked for, he was introducing hygienists before anyone was introducing hygienists. So I was in that environment anyway. I did have a therapy-trained hygienist that I underused. And I think that is a way forward for sure. They should be doing more. When I see people like, who I've worked with and lectured with, someone like Kat Edney, the skills she has and what she can do. And I know most of the therapists are going to be like that. We're underusing them for sure in general practice. But then again, I think there's a whole swathe of younger guys coming through, realizing the potential of these people, integrating them into their teams and utilizing them more. But that's the tip of the iceberg though, guys. That's not the general norm. And, again, I suppose I'm relatively privileged in the people I mix with and whatever. That's a very small percentage of what's going on in everyday practice. I'm constantly with people who want to do courses, do this kind of stuff. What I found being within Portman Dentex is going from the BACD where we would put on a course and people would fall over themselves to come and attend, to being within a big group where there's thousands of dentists and a big swathe that we're struggling to engage with to do to take part in education.
It's interesting, isn't it, that they don't want to engage with the education.
I get it. I kind of get it. They're busy in practice and there's things available online. There's lots of other resources. But yeah, it's a shame.
You just thought you'd do something. Well, I suppose you come back to time, don't you? I suppose if you haven't got the time to do it or whatever.
It's time, financial pressures. There's so many factors with that.
But it does feel like something has to change, and there's got to be an unlock of some sort, hasn't there, to create the capacity.
Will the change of government do it? I don't know. I think it's. I don't know where it's at. I think the BDA have let us down. I don't think they're doing anything for the profession. I'm going to come off the fact I gave up my BDA membership years ago. I just don't think, the BDA is like a shop. It sells things. It's not. I don't think it supports the industry the way it should do. That's why the BAPD became important.
Yeah.
Particularly for private dentistry. And there's some guys on that doing some great stuff.
Yeah.
I must say, who really give a lot of time and are really trying to put pressure on. But when I was in the BAPD, I was seeing, you can see just the layers they have to go through before they can have any impact.
Yeah, I think it's the thing that you said. I think lots of people still put it in the category of teeth without thinking about the link to systemic health. And if you can kind of make sure that teeth are well looked after, it can actually help with so many other health-related
100%.
issues. But
we all know
that joining the dots doesn't seem to be kind of there or happening quick enough.
But that's healthcare full stop. So, diets, processed foods, all these things are a fundamental problem to people's health, It's not talked about. You don't see it generally talked about. It's all about a horse is bolted, we'll give you some tablets type of thing.
Yeah.
But, it's not good.
No. You've got a wealth of experience, Paul. What's the one thing that you figured out that most people haven't? Over your career in dentistry, what's the thing that you go, Now I see it.
Look, I don't know what I have. I think the profession is, what we do is about people. You would come back to that people thing. Treat people well, talk to your patients in the right way. It's all about communication. I think that's where a lot of people are flawed in what they do. It's just how we communicate things to people. When things go wrong, how do you address that? How do you, don't think things haven't gone wrong for me. Of course they have, but I'm quite happy to pick up the phone and say to someone, what can I do? Where do we need to go? Do you want your money back? What do we do? And that's in talking about treatments as well. It's just about being, tell people what's wrong with them.
That relationship thing is massive, isn't it? We went to something where we listened to Raj, wasn't it, Raj Ratan, and he was saying that if you've got a relationship with your patient, you can do most things. He says, even if you've made an error or whatever, but if the relationship's right, you can explain it. He said, as opposed to if you haven't got a relationship, you're in trouble really, because you're a professional who might have cocked it up.
Yeah.
But then also it goes back to, so we hear that in dental schools, they're always being trained to do defensive dentistry. There's lots of form filling. There's lots of covering your ass type stuff going on. Yet you're talking about people, communication and relationships. Does the people, communication and relationships need to start earlier at dental school, where the students learn the value of people?
Dental school, important who the people you're working with when you start, to see how that person does that. Be honest with yourself. I was, again, at 16, I was working on the markets. At 14, what am I talking about? That's the best place to learn how to deal with people.
Yeah, definitely.
I used to sell hats. I've got a few friends who always joke about this, but I used to sell hats. A friend of my dad's used to sell hats. And in that period, there was, in the late 70s, it was pork pie hats.
Yeah.
We used to have on our stand, half the stand was pork pie hats, half the stand was felt hats for the West Indian community. So we'd have all the mods queuing up for their pork pies on one side, and all the West Indian ladies trying on their felt hats for Sunday on the other. So that was a great place. And I know when I was a student, I worked in Marks and Spencer's. They trained people. They were well ahead of the curve in training their staff how to deal with their customers. That's what they were really good at. And I think I probably learned a lot of good customer stuff there, want of a better word. Really important.
You have to do this stuff. It's fascinating, isn't it? Again, the number of people who we find who don't necessarily want to do some of that hard graft work, but want the result.
I'm not saying I worked any harder than anyone else.
10,000 an hour thing.
Chris, but I think, certainly all my kids have done part-time work when they were students and that. I think a lot of that's lost because people are being, these kids are driven so hard academically. They're so busy doing this sport, that sport. None of them get that kind of sort of experience that we might have had when we were younger. So I think that is important.
Yeah. Well, you get to talk to various different people. I think it is about who you talk to, isn't it?
That cross-section of society
helps you.
You say about your kids, Paul. You've got 4 children. They're all grown up. Obviously, you talk a lot about people and relationships. So I imagine your family is incredibly important to you. But they're spread out around the world, aren't they?
Yeah, no, I've got, my oldest daughter is, I can't believe it's 30. That's not true, is it? Am I old enough, am I, Andy? That can't be true. Sorry, Chloe. We were joking. She was here yesterday. It's going to be 31 in June, so we were laughing. She works in the music business. So she works for Ticketmaster, got quite a big role. Always had a love for music.
Tickets.
Yeah, good for tickets. So come full circle, she's great for tickets. Been to some amazing gigs in the last few years because of Chloe, and all her siblings benefit from it. But she lived in Berlin for a couple of years, back in London now, but loves to travel. She's all over the place with work. My oldest son, Oliver, is in Australia, and he's been there since he was 19. He left school, didn't go to uni. He's done everything, all good work ethic, just works. He now works in fund management, so unbelievable. I can't believe he's doing all that after this, but he's 28. Number 3, Leah, is in real estate in London, but she's about to travel. She's giving up her work. And number 4 is at uni down in Brighton.
Wow.
Brilliant. How often do you get to physically all get together as a family? Is it quite challenging now with all over the place?
So 3 of them were with us. It was Mother's Day this weekend, so one came on the Saturday down from Brighton,
Right.
The 2 girls were at home on Sunday.
Nice.
Sweet.
And obviously Oliver being in Australia, a bit tricky.
Yeah,
It's pretty cool, really. Tickets, so you can get tickets for anything. If you need a house,
that's not a public release.
No, I'm just saying, if you're sorted, and also you've got a son who could look after your wealth.
Chris, if you need a ticket, contact Paul Abrahams and get a ticket for anything.
Yeah, what we'll do is we'll put it in the
broadcast.
We'll put it in the bio notes.
We're setting
Tickets
him up.
for anything. No, we've been really great with that. I'm a big sports fan and I love my music, so she's got me some great gigs and stuff. It's been really good.
But you're not just a fan, are you? You still play. I mean, you're a massive Arsenal fan. There's lots of people.
Good man. Are you going tonight, Paul?
I am going tonight.
Good.
Yeah.
I'll see you there tonight, my friend.
Yeah, it should be fun. Yeah,
But
it's going to be a tricky one.
Yeah. But I think if we play with it, Andy. If we play with the passion that we've shown, I think we'll be fine.
So this is going out. This will be going out after the event.
Wait and see.
Arsenal are playing Porto tonight, and you lost the first leg, and you need to put it back in the second leg.
Yeah, we weren't really.
So by the time this gets released,
we could be out.
The result will be known. You'll either be in the next round or you'll be out. But you still play football as well, don't you?
I do. It's getting harder.
That's impressive.
So I play. I've always played. I think it's one of those things you've always played. You can keep going. I've always played. There's a group of guys I play with on Sunday morning. I can play in a 7-a-side game. Same boys have been playing for 20 years, if not longer.
Is it walking football?
No, proper football. When I play, I do walk a little bit, and I play in a competitive league. It's getting harder. So we play. It's a veterans league. You've got to be over 45 now to be in the league. So that's getting harder because we've got a game at the weekend. And the team we're playing will probably be more loaded with 40 to 50-year-olds than 50 to 60-year-olds, which is more our team. So it does get harder. I picked up an injury. I don't know. I got hammered about 8 weeks ago and cracked the head of my fibula. So that's my first game actually first 11-a-side game for 8 weeks.
Wow.
It's getting harder.
But you said something, Paul. I think you kind of glossed over, which is if you keep doing something, you can keep doing it. And I think if you've been doing something for a long while, like playing football, whatever the standard, whatever the level, there's a level of fitness that just keeps there. And whilst the game might get slower and whilst you might not play as frequently, I think if you can maintain a level of fitness as we move into kind of slightly later life, I think that helps massively.
I think anyone would say that. Again, I point at my mentor again. I'm going to refer back to him because he's a massive fitness fanatic. One of his boys is a personal trainer, and he's out in South Africa and always just got back. I think he's back either today or tomorrow. He's done the Argos in South Africa, which is a cycle ride. I mean, he's 67.
Wow.
He's strong as an ox,
Good for him.
And the bottom line is, I think that's also key. In terms of mental health, in terms of being able to do what we do. If you're not well in yourself physically, it's a hard job to do. And I think when you get into your 50s, if you're not well physically and it's a struggle, then it's a struggle, if that makes sense. Going in on a Monday morning is a struggle because you're going to be hurting by lunchtime, so it's really important to look at, again.
Yeah. Has being involved in football, working with other people, managing a sports environment helped with your dentistry team in terms of managing different teams?
I think anyone who's been involved with sport would say that. There is nothing, and mental health as well, by the way, especially for men, there is nothing like being in a change room on a Sunday morning with 12 blokes, whether you're 16, 17, 30, 40 or 55, the banter doesn't change. And, and being part of a team ethic, it's really important. I think that's fundamental.
Yeah,
that banter thing's so funny, isn't it? I do golf. I don't play golf, but my wife will tell me after we've been away, and she says, "What do you all talk about?" And I said, "Well, stuff, really." And she says, "Well, what have you got to talk about?" I said, "Well, stuff, really." And I think it's the same conversations that have occurred, as you say, over the decades, really.
Yeah.
Listen, some guys will go into a change room and they talk about things in their marriage or things that are depressing them or whatever. They might not know they're doing it, because they feel like they're in a safe environment. Can't put it in any other terms. So sometimes, it's a bit like someone sitting in our chair.
It's a great outlet.
Yeah.
They sit in the chair and I'll say, "How are you?" And half an hour later, I haven't heard anything about teeth. It's just, Some of those patients that I've known for years will unleash.
Well, it's safe, isn't it? You're a safe place.
It's exactly that word, safe environment, so key.
Yeah. Paul, we know you have patients waiting for you this afternoon. So before you go, we have 2 final questions we'd like to ask you. You can be a fly on the wall in a situation. Where are you and who's there?
Okay, this is going to be sport.
Of course.
I would have loved to have been in the changing room at half time when Arsenal are playing Liverpool at Anfield and have to win 2-0 to clinch the title. And were we 1-0 up at half time? I can't remember. I think was it 0-0 at half time?
I can't remember now, but I do remember I broke the sofa.
Yeah. So I would love to have known what George Graham said to those boys, because no one won at Anfield in those days. No one wins there now. But I'd love to have known what the psychology was there, what they were saying, that got them over the line, that sort of thing. In that kind of situation, or, when someone's in a fight, or what do those people, how do they motivate them?
But it's high pressure. You've only got a few minutes and you have to galvanise people and get something different from them in the next 45 minutes than happened in the past.
And how did Michael Thomas come up with that very bizarre goal celebration?
Yeah. I don't know what I would have done in that situation, but it might have been something similar. I think it was the disbelief.
And our follow-up is, if you could meet somebody, who would you like to sit down and have a coffee or wine or whiskey with?
I would love to have met Freddie Mercury.
Ah.
A coffee with him and hear a little bit about his life.
Yeah.
And what rocks his boat. I think we knew what rocked his boat, but
I'd only just left school, and they did a gig at Nebworth House, and me and my mate Gary Moon, we only had enough money for one ticket between us, so we never went, and I never got to see him perform live, and I regret massively not getting to see Queen live.
Yeah. I mean, those
my
two great
at Live Aid.
Live Aid, and then a year later at Wembley. And that year later at Wembley was probably the best gig I've ever been to in my life.
Right, yeah.
When he was right at his peak, on the back of Live Aid.
Yeah, it's the Renaissance, wasn't it, Live Aid?
Yeah, kind of magic, all that kind. It was just a beautiful evening.
Yeah, he's a wonderful guy.
And I would love to have had dinner with Freddie Mercury.
Oh, I bet he has some stories to tell.
I bet it'd been a long dinner.
I bet it'd have been a scream, an absolute scream.
Yeah, it
Paul,
would have.
Thank you very much indeed. Absolute joy.
Yeah, brilliant.
Thank you for squeezing us into your busy day. Keep well, and no doubt we'll be bumping into another soon.
See you soon. Probably see you at the BIA. Take care. Thanks, guys.
Cheers, Bob.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Dentology, where we discuss the business of dentistry. If you like what you heard, please do subscribe where you found this episode. That would be amazing. And also follow us on Instagram.